Hello, warriors. Welcome to the You Movement. I am B. And for the last 12 hours, I've been sitting in the energy of profound grief, loneliness, sadness, wishing things had turned out differently, frustrated that things didn't. Spiritual awakenings come along and force you to sit in your deepest wounds. And for me, one of my deepest wounds is the abandonment wound that has played out in my life repetitively, often on a very unconscious level. It's really only since the awakening that things that were once unconscious become conscious, so that we can heal them. But in the healing comes feeling. And the feeling is at times profoundly sad and difficult. So got a bit of a puffy eye situation happening, and sitting in that energy of what I would describe as an emptiness, a vacuous void of disconnection to others. For me, this disconnection and this space was originally created due to adoption. And society simply didn't have any conscious awareness of the devastation and the trauma involved through the process of adoption or rehousing children. This has caused a massive amount of trauma, not only to individuals that have been put through the adoptive system, with the assumption that, kids will just adapt or something. But on a mass cultural level, if you want to look, for example, at the native populations where residential schools were utilized for hundreds of years, the disconnection between a child and their primary caregivers, their genetic family, has caused mass devastation. And it's only in the last really 10 years that we've begun talking about trauma. And we've got a long way to go to undo a lot of the devastation that has been done to individuals that have suffered this type of trauma without ever being recognized. If you say to a counselor through the years, I was adopted, it's basically just a sentence on a form. It's not recognized for the abandonment wound, and on a physiological level, on a spiritual level, on an emotional level and psychological level, the devastation that this wound causes individuals has permeated many people's development, including my own. When we have that kind of a trauma in our early developmental years, it's like taking away some fundamental building blocks that are required to make people feel safe in the world to make people feel a sense of belonging. So whereas an individual raised in their genetic household may have had, and maybe not, but may have had, at least had the possibility of having that fundamental connection, that heart-to-heart space connection with parents. So when you think of a child being held in a parent's arm, that's a heart-to-heart energy. And when you take a child out of the parent's arms and put it in foster care or put it in residential care, where that type of bonding isn't created, it damages that root chakra sense of belonging and sense of being with a tribe, the tribal energy of the root chakra, as well as a sense of belonging and interaction on the solar plexus, sacral. So there's some major woundings that happen on all levels of the person, on the spiritual, on the emotional, on the mental, and on the physical. And we're just being able to identify these types of things. And there still needs to be so much investigation and so much understanding in not only how do we repair it, but how it plays out, and understand it and how it's played out in individuals' lives. Because when there is an absence of energies, we seek out to replace that void, to replace that energy with something. So I've recently talked a lot about, the smoking wound, smoking as a means to fill that void within the heart space. Another wound that plays out is one of codependence, or the using of relationship to attempt to fill that space, that empty space that's missing. And so there was a very good book written a good few decades ago called Women Who Love Too Much. And I can definitely fall into that category of when I have fallen in love with somebody in my life. I've wanted to hold on for dear life, like a life raft of just, that comfort that one gets in the arms of another becomes addictive in nature. And so much so that we hold on to relationships that have long lost a healthy dynamic and have turned into a toxic dynamic. I talked about how my first marriage, I lacked and that was just in my early 20s. So I lacked, with the wound in combination with my maturity level at the time, I lacked the capacity to be able to just let go like normal people would and just say, I want out. So I used sabotage as a means to escape from that situation. I went on to have a couple more, strong relationships where letting them go when they no longer were functioning was very difficult. And one of those relationships was with the father of my son. And I had so desperately wanted the family unit intact, and he left a couple of weeks before I gave birth. And I was in a foreign country on my own for a decade. And in that period of time, that void energy of longing, absolute longing for another individual, exacerbated the abandonment wound so much so that when I did finally have meet my ex-husband and have a relationship, I wanted to hold on for dear life. Regardless of the fact that flags were present almost from the get-go. If I look back in retrospect, you know, there were, it was crisis after crisis. And so I was put into fix-it mode. I must fix it so that it doesn't fall apart. I ever experience that void again. I never want to experience that void again. I never want to experience that longing and that pain and that emptiness. And so I stayed despite so many signs telling me to go. And the more I got in a state of cognitive dissonance with this abandonment wound at play, the more I embedded myself into something that became harder and harder to pull away from, because that abandonment wound was so strong that it circumvented rational thought of what was reasonably a healthier course of action. So when we have an abandonment wound that is at play in our lives, we make unhealthy decisions based on fear of being alone and fear of being in that empty space. And for those of us that found ourselves on this crazy twin flame situationship, it catalyzes a whole experiencing that defies kind of belief. And I have so much gratitude on the one hand, because along came this energy that felt like completion. It felt like coming home. It felt like this empty thing inside of me is no longer empty. And that motivated me to let go of the unhealthy attachments. It also catalyzes all of your wounds to begin to surface. So all those abandonment wounds must be faced. And so for the last 12 hours, as I've said, you know, it's been, again, sitting in that energy of longing and missing. It's been painful. It's exceptionally painful. Ultimately, on this awakening path, however it's been catalyzed for you, we are forced to sit and heal through feeling all of our wounds so that we don't replay the same scenarios over and over again. Like I never, ever, there's many things I have learned through my past experiences that I will never, ever tolerate again. Because I tolerated them because of the abandonment wound. If I heal the abandonment wound, then I'm no longer sitting in an energy of, needing something to fill a void. I can fill that void within self. And some of the things that I think people that have an abandonment wound do is, try to justify or explain to somebody why they have a place in their life. Listen, love me because of this, love me because of that. And, it's like a chasing energy. And another energy that we do is we tolerate being treated less than we actually deserve, to the point where sometimes we're tolerating very abusive and toxic situations. So this causes a really codependent and sick energy of accepting way less than one deserves, because we don't recognize what it is that we actually do deserve. And so I will never, ever chase after any human again. I will never, ever try to explain why I fit into somebody's life if they don't recognize my value from the onset. I'm not going to, create an essay and present them with evidence to the contrary of their beliefs. If they don't recognize the value that I bring to the table, I'm never going to tap dance or modify myself in one way or another. People can either show up or they can't. And either way, I'll be okay, because on this awakening, you learn to be in your own energy. You learn to be alone. You are faced with the loneliness. You are faced with the abandonment wounds. And you learn to give to yourself all the energies that you've lacked, all the self-soothing, all the forgiveness, all the compassion, all the love, so that you don't replay out toxic dynamics in relationships. So I guess today's video is really about drawing attention to the abandonment wound so that we can do some shadow work and identify behaviors that we've done in the past to try to convince others of our worth. If there's a convincing element at play, then that's not a right, healthy dynamic, as well as tolerating energies that we shouldn't tolerate, less than desirable, less than reciprocal, abusive, neglect, adultery, lying, manipulation, any of these types of energies, because when we are in a state of cognitive dissonance, what is happening is the abandonment wound is saying, we're not going to get better than this individual. This is better than being alone. So this is the best that I can do. So I'm going to tolerate it. And when we are justifying our existence in a relationship because of a place of abandonment, ultimately we are abandoning ourselves. We perpetuate the wound by abandoning ourselves, by not seeing our worth, by not seeing our value, by not seeing and recognizing that we deserve better, that we are capable of being on our own and standing in our own energy as a mature, whole, healed individual. It's an arduous journey. It's one for a warrior, not for somebody who is weak at heart, to love themselves so much that they're willing to walk away from toxicity. And listen, I understand how incredibly hard that is. That's why I was so incredibly grateful for that catalyst moment of experiencing a love so profound that it forced me to love myself. It forced me to walk away from dysfunction, abuse. And although throughout this last 3 years, there's been so much grief and so much loss and longing, ultimately, who I'm longing is to be myself fully, to fully be able to be myself and feel grounded as myself. And when you can be in that energy, we no longer will resonate in repetitive, toxic, karmic patterns that are there to teach us difficult and painful lessons. So while I certainly wouldn't wish upon anyone to go through karmic lessons that I have gone through, unfortunately, it does seem to be a case for many of us on this journey that we need to face, and I call them karmic relationships. We need to face these karmic relationships as understanding that they are reflecting in us a deep wound. We wouldn't be in those relationships if there wasn't a feeling of lack. We wouldn't be tolerating the intolerable if there wasn't a deep, profound inner child that so desperately just wanted to be loved and find connection and find safety within a relationship structure. And what we're forced to do is find safety on our own and find love and compassion within ourselves as we learn to not abandon ourselves anymore and see the value and worth within ourselves. So if you are struggling with abandonment wounds, it is an opportunity to sit with your inner child and to show them a lot of love and compassion and understanding. And abandonment doesn't necessarily mean adoption, because you can be abandoned emotionally through a parent that wasn't able to provide you through their own traumas and their own issues with the love that you required. And that can also show up in relationships. So the dynamic between abandonment and relationship is so tightly woven that it's like it takes time to unravel and untwist and fill up the spaces that left a void that another individual could take advantage of and use against you. It's very twisted, but I am sending my absolute love out to everyone that has an abandonment wound and needs some love and compassion into the heart space. I'm recommending doing some heart-centric meditations, placing your hands on your heart, I was doing that most of the morning. I was holding some rose quartz. If you have rose quartz, that's an excellent crystal to connect to the heart space. I was connecting into the energies of Archangel Samuel and Mother Mary today to provide comfort and care within that heart space, because ultimately we can heal these wounds. We can heal all of the traumas. It is possible as we take the time to sit in the energy and feel it and process through the longing and the grief and the sadness, and hold space for ourselves and honor ourselves for the warrior work that we're doing. Those that are bravely walking away from relationship that provided so much. It's hard to break these cycles. So I honor you if you've walked away from toxic relationships. And I know how painful and how difficult that is beyond what most people understand. Because there's a difference between relationships breaking up and trauma bonds breaking up. It's like you need to refill huge, massive places in yourself that have just been filled with the wrong things. And some of those wrong things felt satisfying. That was the hook. That's what kept you there. That's what kept you there. And Spirit comes along and says, no, we're cleaning out all the crevices so that we don't fill them up again with toxic behaviors, addictions, including addictions to people and relationship. Today we honor the sad. Today we honor the longing. Today we honor the grief. Today we honor the lonely. That all said, if you would like to book with me to discuss some of your abandonment wounds and your longing and some of the things that you're facing on this crazy journey, feel free to reach out and book a one-on-one with me. The way to do that will be in the description below. Send me off an email or get in touch via Facebook. Thank you, and thank you for all of the likes, the shares, the subscriptions, the supers, the donations. I really greatly appreciate all of that. Beyond absolute measure, you can't even possibly fathom. This soul's mission is an interesting one. It's an interesting one. I'm sending you all my absolute love from my heart to your heart. Peace out.